If you can't learn to be happy for other people, you're going to be miserable for the rest of your life. I wrote that in my phone yesterday in my notes app after getting jealous and having some really terrible thoughts after scrolling through Instagram and seeing people who are chasing a similar dream to mine, who are in a similar lane, succeeding and thriving. I needed to remind myself, to ground myself in the reality that it's not a zero-sum game. One person succeeding doesn't mean that you are doing any less in your life. It doesn't mean that you're doing any worse. It doesn't mean that that's a loss for you. But it's something I struggle with. I've always struggled with it, whether it was with my sibling, classmates. It's something I've struggled with a lot, and I've never really opened up about it. I think on social media, I try to craft this image of someone who is not struggling, of someone who is always succeeding, who is always composed. That's the image I want people to have of me, when in reality, I'm nowhere near where I want to be in life. I've been struggling mightily. A lot of stuff has happened in the last couple of months. A lot has happened in the past couple of years. And it's hard. It's hard. And I wanted to start the conversation. And I wanted to put this out there just in case you need to hear this. But mostly as a reminder to myself. I have a series of shorts that I make sometimes called Notes to Self, where it's literally the same thing. Every now and then I'll think of something, I'll come across something that makes me jot something down in my notes on my phone. And it's just something to remind myself, just a quick little 1 line, 2 lines. Sometimes it's a poem that it's just for me, just to remind myself of certain things. And sometimes just to hold myself accountable and to remind myself really that it's not the end of the world, that I've been through these things before and I'll make it out on the other side somehow. But jealousy is the destroyer of all joy, however that quote goes, the thief of all joy. And I'm not saying that you have to, every time someone does something good, you have to hold a parade for them, but you got to be able to give people their flowers. That's how you network. That's how you make friends. That's how you turn friends into family. Yeah, in life, you can't always win. And in life, it's not always going to be your time to shine. If you can't give the people around you their flowers, you should not expect them to give you yours either. It's a reciprocal thing. You have to give people the energy you wish to receive. And if you're not receiving the same energy back, then maybe you're not hanging around the right people. If you don't feel like you're being appreciated, maybe you just don't have the right circle around you. Yeah, you can't expect someone to give you the energy that you don't give them. Yeah, jealousy is weird, but it's a very human emotion that we don't talk about often enough. One thing I've noticed from hanging around people who are highly successful, people who are more successful than I'll probably ever be, and people who can sustain their success, right? It's kind of like the one-hit wonder thing. Almost everyone once in their life is going to do something once that's praised or that gets critical acclaim or, grabs your community's attention, right? All of us have one hit in all of us. But the people who can sustain the success, those are the people who I look up to, and the people who are like mystical beings to me, like unicorns, because that's really hard. But I've never really been able to sustain success. I've always had these kind of peaks and valleys where it's like one day I'm on top of the world and then the next I'm just like crying in my parents' basement, The people who are continually successful, who can sustain their success, are not worried about what other people are doing. Like, of course, there's friendly competition and whatnot, but you don't see them wishing ill on people. You don't see them, preying on people's downfall. That is very much a loser's mentality, because when you start to just wish for divine intervention to come down and stop someone from succeeding and achieving their dreams, you've essentially just given up on your own, haven't you? You essentially just waved the white flag and said, hey, it's over for me. In order for me to have any success, I need other people to not stop being successful. And that's not success. And that's not sustainable. It's not a good way to go about living your life. It's not a good way to approach your dreams, because your dreams can be achieved without tearing down the hopes and dreams of other people. And I firmly believe that. Obviously, there's going to be some people who are like, it's a cutthroat, dog-eat-dog world out here. And not really. There's enough to go around for everybody. Let's be honest. But of course, everyone has different opportunities. Everyone has different circumstances. Everyone's born into different socioeconomic statuses. Everybody's born into different opportunities. Generational wealth is a real thing. I wasn't born into riches, second generation immigrant, Southeast Asian. Shout out to my Cambos out there. But I've also had plenty of opportunities that I've kind of fumbled. the reason why I wasn't as successful as the people I was seeing on Instagram and whatnot isn't because I had a lack of opportunities, because I didn't capitalize on some of them. I had to turn some of them down because I couldn't afford some of them, like relocating for a job that, well, it's an internship after college that didn't pay enough for even make rent. So I couldn't afford to move out there. But some of them really were just completely on me, and I have to live with it. One of my biggest regrets, I was offered a job. I think I was a sophomore, I was a junior in college. I was offered a job as a photojournalist for, I think it's kind of a small-ish publication, but it's Wisconsin based. Someone sent me an email. I think they were either a writer or contributor, and they said, hey, like, we'd like to have your voice in this. And this was during the pandemic. And this was when my social anxiety and just my reclusiveness was at an all-time high. I was just super anxious. I couldn't really answer emails. I wasn't in a good headspace. And so, like a lot of my emails, I just didn't answer. I fumbled that one. I live with the regret of that every single day. Now that I'm on the job hunt, trying to, salvage, or trying to hold on to my admittedly kind of crazy dreams, I look back at these things and I think, damn. But something my uncle always tells my dad is that if you could have done it, you would have done it, but you didn't. So what's the point of talking about it? What's the point of looking into the past? What's the point of trying to renegotiate these things when it's already over? As far as we know, time travel is not a thing. And so there's nothing any of us can do about it. There's nothing any of us can change about the past. It is what it is. And so another thing that I think successful people are very good at is just moving forward, moving on. I know someone personally who has tried many different projects, put boatloads of money, time into different projects that haven't necessarily like blown up or anything, and they've just known when to pivot. It's about continually trying. You can't be afraid of failure, because I guess the only thing that's a failure is giving up, not learning from your past mistakes or your shortcomings. When I feel jealous or when I envy people, I want myself to come back to this video. I want you to come back to this video, and I want you to remember that for all we know, we get one shot at this life. It's not the end of the world. It applies to most things. It's not the end of the world. It's not that deep. And the energy that you seek is the energy you need to radiate. Negative feelings only attract negativity. And that's not me telling you to be toxically positive, because that in itself is a negative, paradoxically. But keep the faith. If you believe in whatever it is that you're trying to do, if you work your ass off, you have nothing to be embarrassed about. Yeah, maybe you don't reach the summit of whatever it is, of whatever mountain you're trying to climb, but hell, that's part of life. Part of life is learning to cope with the fact that some things in our lifetime we will not be able to do. But successful people don't dwell on that. They focus on what they can do. The small things you can do every day to work toward your goal or your goals, whatever those may be. Misery enjoys company. I've seen it where, when people get consumed by envy and things aren't going their way, then it's just this zero-sum game where it's like, if I'm not winning, then no one else can win. I'm going to make everyone else around me miserable. And it's tough to watch, because that's how relationships end. I know I've lost people close to me from that kind of mindset. But the scariest thing for me is knowing that I'm capable of that very same mindset. That's why I had to write it down. That's why I'm making this video, because it's cathartic to share it, one, but two, kind of want to hold myself accountable and really process these thoughts. And there's nothing more vulnerable than posting it on YouTube, of course. We're all capable of this mindset. It only takes 1 or 2 bad days and a couple dark moments to really spiral into this really bad mindset that keeps you from being successful. And I want to stop myself from spiraling. And I always try to tell myself that it's infinitely easier to destroy than it is to create. But as far as the feeling that you get, the release, the joy that you get, it's more sustainable when you build than when you destroy. So I'm going to choose to build. I'm going to choose to create. I'm going to choose to give people their flowers. The happy ending of that story is when I saw the person succeed, I held those thoughts. I sat with them. I processed them. There was some really ugly thoughts that I had to wipe from my mind, but you can't just pretend like they don't exist. You have to examine them, where they come from. Just not a great moment in my life right now. Just going through some stuff. that we'll talk about someday, process another day. But it was just coming from this feeling of hopelessness. Like right now, things are very slow. And I'm not trying to complain here because my complaints are only temporary. I'm not going to invalidate them, but there are many good things still going on. Many things to be grateful for. But yeah, it just came from a place of just wishing things on my end weren't where they are. Because, like I said, I'm not where I want to be right now. And I'm not going to be there for a little while just because some things I can't control. And that's okay. Life goes on. But to tell you what I did, I ended up giving that person their flowers. I don't know if they received my message, but I let them know that I supported what they were doing and I was happy for them. And the weird thing was I felt a lot better after that. Yeah. If you find yourself in a similar situation, I'd encourage you to take a step back and really evaluate where those feelings come from, because there's a root to pretty much everything. And if you can address those root causes, I think you can save yourself from a lot of pain and a lot of destructive habits. And I'd encourage you to choose love. You don't have to do anything crazy. You don't have to be toxically positive, but choose not to destroy. Choose to create something today and every day. And I think you'll be a lot happier in life. Thanks for sticking around. Thanks for listening to me ramble. This felt pretty good, so I might do more of these. Just decompression sessions, aka Brian doesn't want to pay for therapy. If this helped you, consider liking the video, sharing it with someone who might benefit from these words, from these thoughts. I appreciate you. Peace.